Welcome back to Newsmax Now. I'm John Bachman. Tennessee Congressman Diane Black introduces a new bill to cut federal funding to Planned Parenthood while an investigation is underway. This comes after the release of two undercover videos purportedly showing top executives haggling over the price of organs from aborted fetuses. Black says it appears that Planned Parenthood is breaking the law and their funding should be removed. This comes as the group that released those videos, the Center for Medical Progress, says they have many more videos soon to be released. While Diane Black calls for a probe into Planned Parenthood, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi wants to launch her own investigation into the group that actually released those videos. Pelosi, a longtime supporter of Planned Parenthood, says the organization has done nothing wrong. She blasted the Center for Medical Reform, claiming they were heavily edited. She says the Justice Department should investigate the group for its political activity. Hillary Clinton is stumping in South Carolina today, but a new Quinnipiac poll shows she's not very popular in three key swing states. Her favorability ratings are almost identical to President Obama's, and that's not very good. In Colorado and in Iowa, her unfavorable rating is at 56%, the same as the president. But in Virginia, 50% are not fans of Hillary, while 51% say they disapprove of the job the president is doing. Also, the Pope's popularity may be declining, but it appears that people are still siding with him when it comes to climate change. A new poll shows that 62% of Colorado voters agree with the Pope that climate change is caused by human activity. That's compared with 31% who disagree. In Iowa, that number is at 65%. Agreement with Pope Francis is the strongest, as you might expect, again, amongst Democrats. A Russian spacecraft carrying 3 new members to the International Space Station has successfully docked. The astronauts will begin a 5-month mission to the ISS, where they were supposed to arrive back in May, but Russia delayed that mission after there were some issues with the rocket launch.
It's what's good for America first and foremost, and what's good for Israel, which of course I care a lot about.
Well, Democrat Chuck Schumer, the key vote on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on MSNBC almost a week ago now, talking about how he's going to weigh in on the Iranian deal. Welcome back to Newsmax Now. So where is Chuck Schumer? Where has he been the last few days? That is what the New York Post wants to know. The Post's editorial board yesterday published a piece after they sent him a list of 10 questions about the Iran deal. I'm studying the issue, snapped the senator, as reported in the Post. Studying the issue, they say, please, there is nothing to study. Just nix the deal, Chuck. That's what the editorial board says. Well, it turns out Schumer has been busy. Today he announced that SUNY Polytechnic Institute and the University of Rochester have won a $110 million federal grant or federal contract there for the Phototronics Manufacturing Institute. We don't know what that is, but it doesn't really matter at this point. According to the AP, Schumer's announcement comes ahead of a big visit by Joe Biden, the guy you just saw there, who was supposed to make a, quote, major infrastructure announcement in New York City next Monday. That, according to Cuomo's office, but no details were provided. So it looks like Schumer may have jumped the gun on the announcement a little bit here. More importantly, what about that $110 million federal contract? And Schumer's the key vote on the Iran deal. Let's not forget about that. Smells like pork to me. Joining us right now, chairman of the Civic Forum PAC and GOP strategist Ford O'Connell, and attorney Liz Peek, columnist for the Fiscal Times. Thank you both for being with us. Ford, let's start with you. Is it plausible this huge government contract is going to Schumer's state and his constituents to buy his silence or perhaps his vote on the Iran deal?
Absolutely, and this is also part of the Obama MO. This occurred during Obamacare to secure some senators with a Cornhusker kickback and Louisiana Purchase. Obama knows exactly what he's doing. If Schumer sides with the Republicans on this, he's likely to bring 13 other Democrats with him, so Barack Obama's cutting off the pass before the Republicans can woo Schumer.
All right, a savvy but calculated move, no doubt. Liz, there was this huge rally in New York City yesterday featuring George Pataki and a large Jewish pro-Israel crowd blasting the Iran deal. This is Schumer's backyard. He lives right there in Brooklyn. It's going to be hard for him to vote no on this and still win his election. So has Schumer set himself up, no, we know he's set himself up to become the next leader of the Democratic Party in the U.S. Senate. But if this does turn out to be a quid pro quo situation, is he really putting the United States and Israel first?
Well, I almost feel sorry for Chuck Schumer on this because he's really caught in between. Clearly, the Obama administration is pushing him very, very hard to line up senators to pass this deal. On the other hand, by the way, it's not just New York City and environs that are pretty hostile to the deal. The country at large, most recent polling shows Americans are not in favor of this deal, not even close. So a lot of work has to be done. And by the way, the president's been doing a lot of work trying to convert not just senators to vote for it, but also the American people, and it's really falling short. So Schumer has several different constituencies, Americans at large. They're against it. Israel, obviously, very much against it. And then, what is he going to do to try and appease the Obama administration? I think he's really in trouble no matter which way he goes. And I almost feel sorry for him.
Almost. Well, Dov Hikind, the New York City assemblyman, was arrested outside of Schumer's office trying to put Schumer's feet to the fire on the issue. We'll have a clip of that coming up later in the program. But please stick around. Liz and Ford are going to be back with us. We're going to talk about the minimum wage. It could be Bernie Sanders' secret sauce when it comes to his surging popularity. But see how some people are already trying to game the system in cities where the minimum wage has been raised to rip off your tax dollars. That's next. And we welcome you back to our roundtable and our guest, Liz Peek, columnist for the Fiscal Times, and Ford O'Connell, chairman of the Civic Forum PAC and GOP strategist. Guys, here's Bernie Sanders on Capitol Hill yesterday introducing a $15 an hour minimum wage bill in the U.S. Senate.
All of our workers from coast to coast need at least $15 an hour. Workers like Charles should not be working 40 hours a week and living out on the streets.
Well, he may be right. Maybe they do need that money. Maybe the government is not the best way to make that happen because workers are not working 40 hours a week in cities where the minimum wage has already been raised. Seattle, for example, is one of the first cities to do just that. Fox News now reports that some workers are asking their bosses for fewer hours, and they are doing this so they can keep their incomes low enough to keep their welfare benefits. According to reports, a home nursing nonprofit in Seattle told Cairo TV that several workers want to work less. Fox News also points out that the state's welfare caseload has dropped very little since the higher wage phase began in Seattle in April, so it's not working here. Liz, what does this tell us about the movement to raise the minimum wage?
Well, look, the first thing we have to do is get rid of any kind of welfare arrangements that discourage working full-time and discourage more work. That what you're talking about in Seattle is that there are certain housing and food stamp restrictions and so forth that limit your benefits if you earn over a certain amount. What could be a worse incentive to work? So we've got to scrap things like that. As to raising the minimum wage so significantly, what we all know is A, it's going to mean further decisions by employers to automate. And by the way, you can flip hamburgers with a robot as well as you can with a person. Secondly, it's going to mean prices going up for average Americans who frequent the kinds of restaurants and other kind of facilities where people are paid the minimum wage. This administration and people like Bernie Sanders don't understand there is one way to drive up wages, and that is to get fuller employment. And I don't mean the sort of bogus 5% number that they throw around right now. I mean getting some of the 93 million Americans that are age appropriate back into the workforce and basically getting rid of this huge overhang of underutilized labor pool. That's why wages aren't going up. And we see nothing that makes any sense that they're trying to do to combat that.
Well, Ford, Bernie obviously has tapped into something here because he's even forcing Hillary Clinton's hand a little bit on this issue. Now, back in the 1990s, and what Liz was saying makes me a little nostalgic for Newt Gingrich and the welfare reforms we saw in the 1990s that were actually signed into law by President Clinton. Is there an opportunity here for Republicans to figure out a free market way to get these wages increased like Liz was talking about?
Well, there is a way. First of all, with the minimum wage, we need to be indexing that into inflation. I think that's the biggest problem. I do think that the $15 way to go may sound good on the campaign trail, but that's bad economics. The problem is, and Liz is exactly right, is we need to have growth to drive wages up. And to do that you actually have to get people back to work. And unfortunately, right now in the United States, there's a disincentive to work. So unless you're promoting growth, you're not going to drive wages up. And that's just the bottom line. And while what Bernie Sanders says sounds good, it's really bad economics. But again, people are emotionally pissed off, and they're going to listen to what they want to hear.
Yeah, pissed off is a good way to say it, and that's obviously what Donald Trump has tapped into. He's obviously dominating the conversation right now. But give us your take, both of you, on who you think is doing the best job about talking about lifting the middle class and raising wages by increasing competition in the workforce. Liz, we'll start with you.
Well, I actually think Jeb Bush has talked a lot about growth and the economy moving forward faster, and he's gotten absolutely pilloried by people on the left for being unrealistic. 4% growth is what we used to sort of take in stride. It's not so unrealistic, and I think it still can happen, but we have to have intelligent leadership that basically fomenting anger at employers. What could possibly be worth? We've had businesses underinvesting for 5 years now because they're traumatized. They don't know when the government is going to strike them next, and this is just another sign of that.
Ford, last word to you.
On the Republican side, I have to agree with Liz that Jeb Bush is doing a good job. I'm not sure anybody's listening,
right.
as is actually Marco Rubio, because he's actually the only one out there with a tax plan. Part of our growth problem is basically our tax structure as well. So both of them are talking about growth, but right now, no one's focused on the substance of what those two gentlemen are saying. They're focused on what Hillary's going to do next and where the next Trump mania stop is.
And know what Donald's doing.
The next Trump mania stop, and the mania does not seem to be stopping anytime soon. Liz Peek, Ford O'Connell, thanks so much for participating in our roundtable today. Ford, we're going to ask you to stick around. We want to get your take on some of Trump's financial information that was released yesterday. Liz, great to see you again, and thanks for filling in for us at the last minute today.
Thank you very much for having me. Take care now.
It's our pleasure. Always great to see Liz Peek with us. And Ford's going to be back. We're going to talk about Donald Trump and some sources of revenue you might not have heard about until today. Also, stick around. More to come. Our daily mix of comedy and news, our headlines and punchline feature is next. And just after that, we're going to go global with news from around the world. New video of airstrikes taking out ISIS hideouts in Iraq and Syria, and another look into Trump's trip to the Mexican border. A recap of what Dick Morris had to say last night on Newsmax Prime. All that and much more when we continue right after this.